It should come as no surprise to anyone who's watched this channel for any amount of time to learn that I'm a pretty big Batman fan. Now that being said, while I've been a fan of virtually almost all of the different live-action incarnations of the character, sorry Val Kilmer, I've never quite felt like any of the various actors who have donned the cape and cowl have truly embodied the Batman that I wanted to see on screen. While the likes of Keaton, Bale and Affleck have all brought pieces to the complete puzzle to the table in their take on Batman, I feel like I'm yet to truly see my Batman brought to the big screen. And with the many question marks surrounding the future of the Caped Crusaders' cinematic endeavours, with Ben Affleck's status remaining unclear for Matt Reeves' upcoming standalone film, I thought it'd be interesting to discuss what I'd like to see in an upcoming Batman movie. One of the biggest complaints with the previous versions of Batman on screen is that none of the films have delved too deeply into the detective element of a character named the world's greatest detective. While there's nothing wrong with seeing Batman punch his way to a solution, it would be refreshing to see the Dark Knight stuck in a situation where the answer isn't in his utility belt and instead within his mind. Much like how you would in the Arkham video game series, I want to see Batman investigating crime scenes and attempting to unravel a larger mystery. There are no shortage of great comic books that focus on Batman's detective skills that could serve as an inspiration. A few I'd throw out would be The Long Halloween, Black Mirror, although that story features Dick Grayson as Batman, and Hush. Interestingly enough, in an interview with New Trailer Buzz, Matt Reeves did state that,
and I want to do a very point of view driven, this film, and all the films, what I try to do in an almost Hitchcockian sense is use the camera and use the storytelling so that you become the character and you empathize with that point of view. And I think there's a chance to do an almost noir-driven detective version of Batman that is point of view driven in a very, very powerful way.
It has also been reported that Reeves is looking at David Fincher films like Seven, Zodiac and The Game. He's really high on this idea of a gritty crime drama with the world's greatest detective on the case. Not only are films such as Zodiac and Seven deeply rooted in mystery, they also present a notable psychological element, one which also works tremendously in a Batman film. I've always wanted to see a Batman movie on screen that deeply explores the psychology behind the identity of the character. This was something originally planned in Batman Forever but was largely abandoned save for one fantastic deleted scene. And while the Dark Knight series touched on the notion of Batman being a symbol,
the idea was to be a symbol. Batman could be anybody. That was the point.
I want to see Reeves explore this in even greater detail. You see, Batman is a deeply psychological character, and when faced with the right villain, this can quickly become an integral part of the story. Villains such as Hugo Strange, the Riddler, and even the Joker can attempt to unravel and deconstruct the Dark Knight, and use his repressed psychological issues as a weapon to defeat him. Notwithstanding, many of Batman's rogues are inherently symbolic of different elements of the human psyche. For instance, the Joker is Batman's ideological opposite, the chaos to the order. Two-Face and Black Mask both represent the battle for identity, which Batman also struggles with. Who is the man behind the mask, Bruce Wayne or Batman? Scarecrow represents the fear which has driven Bruce Wayne into the cape and cowl and fuels his rage against crime, and Mr. Freeze is the cold-hearted, emotionally void crusader for justice that Bruce had to become in order to revive a semblance of happiness and purpose. By delving deeply into the psyche of the man behind the cowl, coupled with the almost thriller-esque mystery as mentioned prior, would make a really fascinating Batman film, one which would push the character to his very limits, but not exclusively in a physical manner as characters such as Bane have done previously, but also on a deeply personal one. I'm sure like many of you, I grew up watching Batman the Animated Series, and one major difference I've noticed from that version of the character and the ones we've seen on screen is the notable supporting cast around Batman. While pretty much all of the films bar the Joel Schumacher series have tried to paint Batman as a loner, this actually isn't so true when you look at the comic books. But the character was only ever alone for less than a year, from his introduction in May 1939 to the debut of Robin in April 1940. And pretty much all of the beloved Batman stories in the comics, or the animated series, or the video games have depicted Batman as someone with partners. And honestly, I would really like to see this dynamic played out on screen, whether it's one of the many different Robins or Nightwing, Batgirl, Catwoman, or somebody else entirely. The Bat family is arguably just as beloved and important as the Dark Knight himself, and in desperate need of their live-action debut. Especially in a cinematic world where we've now seen Batman work alongside the Justice League, it's not so out of the realm of possibility that he'd have other heroes on standby to offer a helping hand. As someone that's read Batman comics from practically every era of the character's existence, I find it somewhat frustrating to see different filmmakers falling into the trap of only looking to a certain era of Batman stories for their on-screen inspiration. For instance, while Tim Burton did borrow the aesthetic of the 1940s Bob Kane and Bill Finger books, his story was largely influenced by Alan Moore's 1988 graphic novel The Killing Joke for the original 1989 Batman film. Likewise, Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight trilogy took inspiration from several comics, mainly Batman Year One from 1987 for Batman Begins, The Long Halloween from 1996 for The Dark Knight, and 1993's Nightfall for The Dark Knight Rises. And even more recently, Zack Snyder's interpretation of Batman in Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice was very much based off Frank Miller's 1986 The Dark Knight Returns. As you can see here, all of the comics that have served as a major inspiration for films were written and released within a 10-year period, and I think that's a bit of a problem. Batman is a character that has existed for almost 80 years, and has arguably more iconic stories than any other great comic book character. And while I'm not arguing that these comics aren't great, I am arguing though that Matt Reeves, or whoever helms the next Batman project, should look further than just this time period, and by doing so would present a unique take on Batman. Whether this be done by revisiting the classic Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams run from the 1970s, or taking inspiration from more recent comics such as Scott Snyder's Court of Owls, would prove beneficial in crafting a Batman movie that would stand apart from those which have came before it by moving away from the 1980s and 1990s, which has been excessively played out on screen. One of the luxuries of a character existing as long as Batman has is that he becomes extremely malleable over time, able to be remoulded and reshaped to fit the particular story that he finds himself in. And while each different cinematic iteration of the character has brought elements which do feel like Batman, I still feel like we're yet to see a definitive Batman on screen. And while I do think that Ben Affleck has brought us the closest rendition to this so far, his possible exit from the franchise shouldn't bring an end to this. Whoever Matt Reeves hires to don the cape and cowl next isn't too important as long as they can effectively portray the various roles needed to bring Bruce Wayne and Batman to life. I'm more concerned about capturing the feel of the very best of the character, and not leaning too heavily on the films that came before, because as great as many of them are, we've seen them already, and it's time for a different take on the character. I have little doubt in Reeves' ability to make an excellent Batman film, and whatever he decides to base his story off, I'll remain eager and excited to see what he does with this beloved character. His work on the Planet of the Apes series was tremendous, and if he captures the same tortured soul, warrior characterization that he gave to Caesar with Batman, it could be fantastic. But until then, all we can do is speculate and anticipate the return of the Dark Knight to the big screen. Hey everyone, thank you for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please make sure to leave a comment down below and discuss anything we talked about in the video itself. What are you hoping to see in Matt Reeves' upcoming standalone Batman movie? Who would you like to see play Batman next if Ben Affleck is out? And who would you like to see be the villain? Would you like someone we've already had before? Or would you like a new villain entirely? I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about that. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new here, so you can catch up on all the new videos we make every week here on the channel. Just a quick programming note, there won't be a video next Friday. I will be out of the country travelling to Los Angeles, but there will be a big video coming up the following week for you to check out, so I hope you'll enjoy that. There are some more videos on screen right now that you may enjoy if you enjoyed this one, and you can find a written version of this video on my website, owenlikescomics.com. You can follow me on Twitter just at owenlikescomics, and that's all for me, and I will see you all next time. So until then, take care and keep reading.